So, without question, this was a step down, but I don't think that this was all bad because the the idea for this show was supposed to be an anthology thing, but because of how popular people responded to the cast, it was decided to scrap that idea and then continue with them. Well, if you come out with a real banger, the second one is always going to feel inferior. You know, going from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back, even though now Empire Strikes Back is considered the best one. But yeah, it was this season had a really tough bar to live up to, and even then, according to the showrunners on the extras that are on the last disc, it seemed like that there were a whole bunch of things that just occurred behind the scenes that ended up causing issues for this season to not turn out as good as it could have been. Yes, there was the strike, which affected tons of shows that were on at the time, Supernatural being a pivotal one, but at the same time, you had little behind the scenes, although they didn't really allude to what all of them were. It's possible that the commentaries that are on these episodes say a little bit more. I wouldn't know because I didn't know that this show had commentaries until I was done watching this season, so now it's too late for me to jump into that. I'm going to have to save that for my next run through of this show, whatever that may be, like with the '04 Battlestar Galactica show, but yeah, I really feel bad for pointing out that this was inferior because they were trying, because what they were doing with Claire's storyline. Like, what else could they really have done? The family has to go someplace else because now they're technically on the run for whatever company Claire's dad, Noah, his name might be. I really have a tough time calling him anything other than Claire's dad. I don't know what it is, but now that he's basically on the run from the company that he was employed with in season one, even though it seems like whoever portrays Dave Sidney something, I think his name is, he's an actor that's been all over the place. It seems like that he was part of the same company or was in a company that knew of that other one. Nathan dealing with PTSD after what happened with Peter. Well, that's perfectly logical because Nathan does care about Peter. His actions are misguided, but he does care. Same thing with Hero's father, who's played by George Takei. He cares for Hero, he just has a different view on things, because Hero's just a guy, whereas Hero's dad is a guy that became something, and that something is who he forever is going to end up being, you know? And Matt, how he manages to become integrated in this and how you get an expansion of his powers. You kind of needed that expansion because if you didn't expand it, then he's just a sidekick. But he's a character that everyone loves. And it's like, why would you have him be a sidekick? Mohinder works better as the sidekick, even though in the first season he was arguably the force that brought them all together, the other arguable one being a combination of Hero and Peter, but the fact that he had those expansion of the powers makes him a lot more useful and able to hold up his own. It's a little bit of a bummer that they wrote off the wife character, but she became less and less important as the season was going on. And who knows, maybe it could just be that the actress didn't want to come back or they couldn't agree on what to do, so they did just pop, tossed her. It makes sense. All those storylines I thought were good, even when you had the bits of not knowing for sure who is on whose side, but because of this interweb of things, you have to have some doubt. If you have a cast this big, there has to be a gray area. Somebody that you think is on the good side, but you question. That was Clara's dad last season, and for a bit of this season, and then Mohinder takes his place this time. Huh? So, yeah, all that's well done and good, but that's not to say that all the storylines were good in my mind, because, Hero's storyline, once I know the twist of the season, okay, there's a lot more to it, okay, but it went on a little too long if you don't know the twist, and even when you know the twist, I bet on a rewatch I'm still gonna feel this way. His friend, Andro, I can't get it right, I'm sorry, but he felt a lot more useless this season, and that's not to say that the guy was bad. The guy was fully into it. You can tell that he's enjoying what he has to do, and the writers were trying with him, but you had that problem. The complexity of this storyline makes it so that you only fully appreciate a lot of the things on the rewatch, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but for a casual TV viewer, it's going to be less bad because more and more people are instant gratification these days, don't want to think, even when they're binge watching a show, and that kind of a thing. And then Nikki's storyline, along with I really hate to use this term, but I forget their names, the minority cast. Even though it adds a richness to the storyline, and without the minority people, how else could you have reintroduced Sylar? I don't think you could have. But their storylines felt just a little weaker. The only reason their storylines end up working more than they don't is because of the interconnectivity of this show, because the black chick that can copycat people meets up with Micah and Nikki later on and provides them some assistance, and the brother and sister running from either Mexico or somewhere in South America, and they encounter Sylar, and he helps them out, and part of him wants to help them, and part of him doesn't, because he's still reeling from his own PTSD of what happened to him, because he didn't get away unscathed, like with Peter. Because of that interconnectivity, it gives the characters worth. But if you just look at them by themselves, it's weak. And I hate to say that, I do. Because there's rumors that the character of DL was basically written off because there was tension between him and Ali Lauder. I haven't looked into it that much, but unfortunately I think a few things like this do happen, and yes, there is a bit of hypocritical coming from me, because, you know, I'm a white guy who's never really had to worry about stuff like that, but but I'm just trying to say all this stuff to point out the good and the bad. Okay, this was not bad. A lot of things in here did feel like a comic book with, you know, a lot of people, and I am curious to see where they're going to go with this, although they definitely need to give Sylar a bit more to do, because, okay, him not playing a picture in the grand scheme of things so that he can recover, that's not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing, but you have to do more next season, because then the character will be effectively useless. Hey, you were complaining about him in season 1 when he wasn't around for the first half. He wasn't around for the first half because we needed to get ourselves introduced to all of these characters, okay? And then, for the first half of when we do see him, we need to have more and more of his origin story explained so we can tell just how bad he is. Plus, you gotta remember, Sylar is not the only bad guy in Season 1. Claire's dad was an anti-hero for most of it. Isaac was a dick character. The guy who could explode, I forget his name, right? Now he's a problem. Linderman is a problem. Hero's dad is a problem for one stinking episode, but there were other issues going on there. This season, on the other hand, you only have two bad guys, Sylar and Dave. Okay, the chick... No. The chick, that is his daughter. I very much doubt that it's his daughter. I honestly bet that he adopted her like with Claire, like Claire was, and never told her that she was adopted, unlike Claire. Maybe he did, because one problem with this season that I forgot to mention is that the volume at which characters interact with is so low that it's just like, what the hell, you know? Right, but there were only two bad guys, plus you're worried about the Spanish chick who ultimately didn't prove to be a problem because Sylar... Yeah, but... we need more from Sylar, okay? He's the main antagonist for a reason, so you gotta do more. I don't mind another bad guy. In fact, I would love to see another bad guy. Yeah, but that's something that needs to change for Season 3. Yeah. And hopefully they can use Ali Larter's character a little better next season. I kind of doubt it. But hopefully that happens. Because now that the split personality thing, yeah, she was just there, unfortunately. Okay, so there might be one or two other points I could mention, but I think I've made this long enough. Let's see where they go with this thing.